Good afternoon, everyone from Dublin. I'm Sagun Shrestha, one of the joint coordinators of IRAAL PGSIC. IRAAL stands for Irish Association for
Good evening from Nepal.
Yeah, and Namaste as well. Yes, Namaste is my own, let's say, greeting from Nepal. So Namaste to all the colleagues. So IRAAL, I have just briefly, I've just, expanded the acronym. Later, my friend, my colleague Raquel will talk much about IRAAL. So Irish Association for Applied Linguistics, Postgraduate Special Interest Group. And this particular event is organized by this group, by the way. So, and I'm also one of the moderators of today's session. And I have my colleague, joint coordinator of, again, IRAAL PGSIC, Raquel is here. Over to you, Raquel, to introduce and to further talk a little bit about our IRAAL PGSIC. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Sagun. Well, you already know my name, Raquel. It's really nice to be here with you all today. So let me explain briefly who we are and what we are doing with this postgraduate group of interest. What we're doing is providing a forum for all postgraduate students in Ireland and other parts of the world to contribute to research and discourse related to applied linguistics. And our main aims are the following: to create a common platform for all postgraduate students to network and to provide them with opportunities to discuss and debate issues around applied linguistics, to inform postgraduate students of any current issue or concern in applied linguistics, and to help them share their work within a wider network by organizing academic events such as, conferences, workshops, roundtables, symposia, webinar, and so on. And we'd like to give visibility to, postgraduate work through our newsletter, through our blog, social media, and any possible means. And finally, we would like to inform postgraduate students about academic events or other opportunities around the world, which means, any possible position in a university or any scholarship, whatever we find that might be of interest to you all. So thank you very much for listening to me explaining all this stuff.
Thank you, Raquel. And thanks to all my colleagues who could join from Nepal as well. Welcome to this event. Let me quickly tell you a very basic housekeeping, by the way. So all of the participants are requested to mute their microphone when our presenters will be talking so that there won't be any kind of interruption at all. That's, I think, like everyone would follow this very common practical rule. Now, let me introduce our panelists today. Let me begin from Maricarmen. Maricarmen Gamero right now, who is webbing. So Maricarmen Gamero is a PhD researcher at the University of Warwick, UK. Her research interest is in the area of teacher education in video remote teaching. She has worked as an online and on-site teacher trainer and language teacher for 12 years. Most of her experience has been in Venezuela, her own home country, but also in the UK and China. So, and luckily Mary and I, we also studied together during our master's program in University of Warwick. So welcome, Mary, in this event. Secondly, we have Nicole Berríos Ortega, if I have mispronounced, please forgive me, is a teacher of English as a foreign language from Chile with 12 years of teaching experience. Currently, she teaches EAP and Spanish as a foreign language in the UK. In 2018, she obtained her master's degree in drama education and English language teaching at the University of Warwick. She is currently a drama and ELT PhD student at the same institution. So welcome, Nicole. And we have, last but not least, we have Yohimar, who is a PhD student in curriculum and instruction, languages, literacies, cultures, and communities, and the UFL, if I have correctly pronounced, Holmes Scholar 2019. She holds a MA in TESOL from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, USA. Yohi came to the US through a Fulbright scholarship for the Faculty Development Program 2016-2018 after working in Venezuela for 9 years as an ELT professor at Universidad Nacional Experimental Francisco de Miranda, if I again correctly pronounce. Her research interests are related to bilingual education, English language learners, and language policies supporting, again, English language learners in elementary and secondary education in the US. Yohi is currently a graduate research associate at the Interdisciplinary Early Childhood Research Center, where she is doing research with a focus on literacy, language, and social justice in early learning centers. Welcome, Yohi. So then let me briefly tell you the format of today's event, then we'll quickly proceed to the main event. So it will be of an hour. So yeah, we've planned for 5 to 6 minutes for introduction, 8 minutes presentation by each presenter. So altogether, this will be nearly 24 to 25 minutes, let's say, with some transition, 26, let's say. So, and there will be 10 minutes questions from the 10 minutes question answer session, which will be, moderated by we two, Raquel and me. And there will be 20 minutes question answer session, which we have called here floor discussion. In the floor discussion, we will take questions from the participants, which will be typed in a chat box, and we'll direct them to our panelists. That's it. Now, without much delay, I would like to request Mary to begin presentation, and which will be followed by Nicole and Yohi later.
All right, thank you very much, Sagun, and thank you very much, Raquel, for the introduction and, of course, for the invitation. And I think it's nice to have these kind of spaces to discuss our research and some of the experiences we're having doing research during pandemic times. So I'm going to give you like a brief overview about my research. There are some aspects that I'm not going to mention because this research is still being, in the process of research. So I'm still developing the study. So I'm going to try to share the screen now. Next screen. Can you let me know if you can see the screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically, well, I'm going to start by saying that I've been teaching online and remotely since 2009. So I have had this interest on technology. Let me set the time so I don't go over time.
Yeah.
So I've been using technology for teaching for quite a long time by now. And I have faced different challenges as a practitioner using technology and using video conferencing tools. So that's why that was like the starting point or my interest on doing this kind of research. I worked with video conferencing mediated co-teaching for my master's dissertation. So I was basically a project in which there was a remote teacher and a classroom teacher. So it means that the students, they were having two teachers to practice the language. And of course, the remote teacher was using a video conferencing app. In this case, it was Zoom in that case. And of course, there was that kind of communication and practice. So that was my MA dissertation. I decided to continue working with the same topic for my PhD research. However, pandemic happened, so I had to modify, I had to make a little change, and I will tell you about that with the questions. And then I decided to focus on remote teaching exclusively. So as you can see, the title of my research so far, because I'm using a naturalistic approach, it's Remote Teachers Practice, Integrating Video Conferencing Tools into Language Teaching. So mainly my research aim is to understand the language teaching practice of remote teachers when integrating video conferencing tools. So in this case, I'm basically, we could say, doing a descriptive research, but at the same time, I'm trying to get to a comprehension level about the decisions that they make when they are using video conferencing and when they are teaching a language remotely. Once again, even though, because remote teacher could be done through video conferencing apps, or it could be done through Moodle, or it could be done through WhatsApp, but in my case, I am just doing it with teachers that are using video conferencing tools. So I'm going to repeat once again that according to my research aim, so I'm looking at how they carry out their teaching practice, how they do it. So basically, the basis of my research comes from situated learning and technology integration. So situated learning means when the teachers, they are doing their practice and they have different classrooms and in different countries with different contexts, there are going to be situations and there are going to be different circumstances that the teachers will have to consider to actually teach. So it's called situated learning because it is through the experience that the teachers start, like say, modifying their philosophy or modifying their practice. So as I said, as it is a naturalistic approach, I'm looking at what they do when they are teaching and the aspects, their reflections while they are teaching. And in the case of technology integration, when we talk about technology integration, there are two aspects, like practice reconstruction and transference. So in the case of practice reconstruction, and this one is from Tersani, this kind of research about technology integration has been done when the teachers have taken training before using technology to teach in the classroom or to teach remotely. So in my case, I'm doing it without providing them any training because my idea is to see the strategies that they come up with to face the challenges that they face when teaching remotely, which is most of what the teachers are doing nowadays because of the pandemic. Okay, so most teachers, they have been in the need of adapting or using technology to teach the language. So that is the practice reconstruction. It means that when you have, let's say, a new tool or you are teaching something with a new tool, even though you have the technical skills, you somehow need to shape what you are doing or the way that you are teaching. And transfer refers to the previous experiences that they have, whether using other kinds of technologies or the experience they have teaching on site. So there is always this aspect of transfer. And this is kind of like the basis of my research. And somehow this is going to not influence, but it gives me an idea of the processes that the teachers are going through when they are teaching remotely with video conferencing. So the elements that are involved in my research, of course, as I said, their practice, best practices, their experiences or personal characteristics, because there it comes, which is the teacher's style, for example, or the teaching philosophy that they have, the affordances of the video conferencing tools that they are using at the moment, the nuances of the tools, and the strategies to deal with constraints. So my research is mainly qualitative, and I'm working with remote teachers with or without experience with the video conferencing tools. So I'm using multiple case study, and in the case of my research design, there is an aspect of autoethnography because, as I said, I have some experience doing remote teaching, remote language teaching. So there is an aspect of autoethnography that is going to be included in my thesis. So that's basically what I have to say or to present about my research. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I guess you nailed it as regards to, yeah, in terms of timing as well. So over to Nicole.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I'd like to thank you for creating this space to share our concerns and our ideas and all the ways that we are coping with this situation, this global situation. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now. I hope you can see it. All right. So I'll set the timer so that I don't go over time. And okay, so as you know, I'm a language teacher from Chile. I am doing my research in drama and language learning. I'm interested in the interactions between the arts and the language learning processes, particularly in drama. Of course, first of all, I'd like to say that this is all a work in progress, right? Most of the things that had been planned for this research had gone through lots of changes due to the sanitary crisis. So most of the things I'm going to be mentioning now will be related to that, to the changes and the adaptations that I have gone through throughout my research. Okay, as you can see, I am interested in drama, and before I get into the analysis of my research, I'd like to briefly define the difference between drama and theater. People usually tend to think of drama and theater as synonyms. However, there is a slight difference between them. When we talk about theater, we talk about a product, right? A play, a presentation. And when we talk about drama, we focus more on the process of getting to that product. You know, so when I talk about drama in this research, when I talk about drama for learning, I talk about drama as a holistic pedagogical tool that appeals not only to the brain, but to the whole body, and also to imagination, emotions, the voice, and different aspects that usually in traditional classroom contexts are omitted. So there is a large body of literature that supports the use of drama as a pedagogical tool, especially for language learning, as it creates for students to put their language skills to practice within a context. And I'd like to mention that I decided to implement this project in Chile, which is where I come from, because first of all, in Chile, there is no drama as a subject at schools in the curriculum, and because also it was kind of my contribution to social justice. I mean, people in private schools can access to these elements of the curriculum that people in state schools cannot. So it was a way of incorporating something that I like, and I think it can be beneficial for the students in my context, from my area of expertise, which is language learning and teaching. So, as I said before, drama can do lots of things for language learning. However, by itself, it does nothing. It's only what teachers do with drama what actually makes a difference. So that's why I focused my research not on the students' learning processes, but on the teachers in a way of training them to use these techniques with their students. There isn't much research on this area around the world. There are only a few elements and a few studies that have been conducted. And in one of the few that I found from Dunn and Stinson, they say that it's only when a teacher has the mastery of that language teaching plus the mastery of the art form, it's when they can actually combine them and actually have some effects on the students' learning processes. So basically my research questions deal with that. How can a CPD course in drama and ELT be designed for teachers with little or no drama background? And what are the skills that teachers need to develop in order to use drama within the constraints of their teaching context? Originally, this was going to be in state schools in Chile. And then from that, what are the perceptions about the impact it has on the students from the reflections from the teachers? So Basically, my research study was getting in touch with some communities of practice, which are called English Teachers Networks in Chile. And they are all teachers from state schools who get together to share new ideas. So I got in touch with them, and I was going to conduct the CPD course with them. And I was going to conduct the course with two different times. So I have a first cycle, and then with a reflection about the reflection I could get from the first cycle, I could improve the iterations of it. So as you can see, I would have basically my methodology, action research. I have 2 cycles of the methodology, but also a multiple case studies, because I was going to work with teachers in their particular context cases. I thought of many challenges when I was planning my research. Positionality, the use of technology, one part of the research included that, the political situation in Chile at the moment, but I never thought of a pandemic. And with this pandemic, one of these other challenges that I had already thought of became even bigger, because using technology could be an issue, but using technology to teach drama can be a big issue as well. So I've gone through several modifications in my research. Basically, I am going to be offering the course anyway for teachers in Chile, but not necessarily for teachers at state schools. In this case, teachers at state schools are very overwhelmed with the workload they have gone through, having to turn from on-site sessions to online sessions overnight. So, and I've also found a new group of teachers so that I can train here in the UK. The course will be held completely online. Before we had an online and an offline part. And my first cycle has changed completely because it has focused on personal reflection and certain elements of autoethnography, because I have to prepare myself and I have to see myself as an online trainer on drama. So I will only have the multiple case study part in my second cycle, not in my first cycle. So my methodology has gone from action research and case study to action research, case study, and also ethnography. So I am very hopeful that this can actually take place either online or face to face, if in the future eventually it's an option, right? But in the meantime, I'm looking forward to going from this, which is an empty studio, to this. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, very nice presentation, and yeah, you also nailed it, even as in terms of timing as well. Now over to Johi. Johi, yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, Johi.
Okay, let me. Oh, sorry. Okay, as you said in my bio, I live in a very diverse city. It's called Louisville, which is considered south or Midwest of the United States. So we receive a ton of immigrants here, and those immigrants who settle here as refugees or any other category that you have as immigrants. So my interest is in those families and those students who settle in the United States, and they are newcomers to high school or community colleges, or now community colleges, because at the beginning was only high school resettlement. So when these students enter high school, they need to be served with language services. And for that, the United States have policies, state laws that categorize them in terms of how much language or language skills they have developed. So my research interest is in investigating language ideologies and language stigmas towards the ESL population in high school before COVID. So to do that, first, you need to check yourself, in this case, me as a researcher, and what are the positions that I have in this scenario where I also share the same language background as my participants. So I have my own positions, I have my own belief, and I have my own language ideologies. As a language teacher that I used to be, I used to teach English back in Venezuela, and in the United States. 2 years ago, I taught Spanish in a university. I have my own belief about English as an English language learner or a bilingual person, and the belief that have been developing since I am a researcher in this scenario. So the type of research that I want to do is the ones that give protagonism to my participants by hearing their stories, their voices, and also take bilingualism as an asset and not as a burden. So my type of research that I'm going to be doing is the one that highlight cultural capital and humanized research practices. Of course, I will have to understand my students' background, but also the instructors, because I'm going to be working with teachers, well, before COVID, and students. So to set like the scenario of it, in the United States, the Department of Education, through the Office of English Language Acquisition, set the tone for what are the services that need to be done to English language learners. Those services go from ESL classes in pull-in or pull-out services, and it is mandatory at the level of elementary education, and it's mandatory at the level of high school. But that looks different in all the scenarios. Some schools have English services in the pull-out, which means that students get out from the classroom and go to the ESL classroom. And some schools provide bilingual education. In my scenario, those are pull-out options. Students get ESL 1 or ESL 2 classes in high school, depending on the school. In this school, particularly, they would take 3 levels of English. At the same time, they are taking regular classroom, or what I call content or core classes. So what is the problem with this? Is that when you are part of the dominant culture as a white person and you are bilingual, you are taken as an asset. Oh, you speak English, and you also speak Spanish, for example, right? So for a person that comes from an immigrant background and come here maybe as an undocumented student, which is a legal term that is complicated and problematic in so many ways, but I'm gonna use it this time, or as a refugee, you're not seen in the same way as a bilingual person because you don't know English. So my interest in working with the teachers first is to know what are their beliefs about teaching in terms of when having English language learners in the classrooms. Do they accommodate those students? Do they have differentiated instruction for English language learners? And also, what are the beliefs about the students and the language? Why? Because language ideologies are not only beliefs about language, but they are a set of cultural beliefs about the speakers. So understanding how language shapes people's actions and how those actions may be leading to privileged English native speakers in the classrooms while unintentionally overlooking English language learners' needs. My interest is not on ESL classes, it's on the regular classrooms where they have to be learning math, science, and any other regular class. So what are the theories that are going to inform this? First, language ideologies as a set of cultural belief, cultural capitals in schools in a way that I understand what is the cultural wealth or community wealth that these students bring to the classroom beyond language. And another theory that I'm going to be using is linguistic profiling, which means profiling people. Profiling means categorizing people because of their language, but beyond that, it's more of a consideration of race. So those three theories are going to inform what is going to be my main theory in this, which is the intersection of language and race. Why? Because language sometimes can be a category for people to profile non-English speakers. So when the focus is on the listening subject, what I mean by the listening subject means that sometimes the people who listen to you, let's say the dominant culture, have their own belief and set of assumptions about you that is not sometimes related to only language, but is most of the time related to the background that people have. So those beliefs, what are those ideologies about not being a native speakers? What are those ideologies about standard language? Does it exist a standard language? Do we have such a thing? Those are controversial topics right now in the linguistics scholarship. So sometimes by having those assumptions, we forget what are those students bringing to the classroom in terms of their own culture, their home language, and their own traditions that they might have. So before, how I've been impacted by COVID. First, I was conducting research for 1.5 years in a high school in a bilingual mentoring program, and where I was mostly in contact with Spanish speakers, students that came to the US 2 or 3 years ago, and were having access to a bilingual program that was led by students that saw the need for English language learners that came to the school to have, they needed help with English, but not only English, but to navigate the school system in general. So as COVID hit and the students went completely online, the bilingual mentoring program, we don't know if it's gonna still happen. It's gonna be happening the next academic year. So I started a new process in a community college that welcome English language learners that come from high school to and they also have English language services in the community college, but it looks different, but I will have to, adapt to the new context. And something I wanna highlight about it is like, this does nothing to do with international students. Those are immigrants that come to resettle to the United States, because the policies for international students are different. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johi. Yes, thanks for the wonderful presentation again. So, yeah, we have seen like all of us have been, our work have been impacted by COVID-19 crisis situation one way or the other. We'll also share a little bit later, I mean, Raquel and me, how we have been affected as well, or how our studies have been affected as well. So before that, I would like to request Raquel, if there are questions, then you can ask to our panelists.
Yeah, I have many questions, to be honest. So I'll try to be as precise as possible. Maricarmen, I have a question for you first.
Okay.
From your experience, what are usually the main problems teachers confront when teaching online?
Well, it depends. Because, for example, if there is a teacher that has experience, but they are using a new tool, in that case, it would be just getting used to the tool because they already have the way of teaching with the previous one. So it's like they develop their way of teaching with a specific tool. But when they are changed, when they are faced with a new one, then they have to adapt to the new one. And it's kind of like they have to relearn once again. That's why I mentioned the aspect of situated learning. Now, in the case of the teachers that they had to face the change from on-site teaching to online teaching, there are different contexts. There are the teachers that have maybe 40 students in one virtual classroom, and I'm talking about video conferencing apps. But there are other teachers that obviously the difficulty of knowing how to use the tool, the features, and if there is no training, because this pandemic hasn't given us time about, for training, they have to learn at the same time of doing their practice. So those are like the main issues that I have found so far. But there are more.
That's it. I think we all can relate to that as well. Thanks very much for your answer. Nicole, I have a question for you as well.
Yes.
You were working with teachers, if I remember. Is that correct? Yeah. And what are their impressions about using drama as a pedagogical tool?
Actually,
is it working to lower students' anxiety? Is it working well?
Actually, I for my current research, I wasn't able to conduct the course or to run the course and to collect the data because I was in Chile at the moment the pandemic was declared, and I wasn't. I mean, everything was cancelled. All big group meetings and all that. So I wasn't able to do that. But I have been teaching in the short courses with at the university for teachers who come from different places in the world for I don't know, training. And yes, they have found, I mean, I think what I wanted to focus in my research was teachers, but I also wanted them to experience what it is like to go through a drama activity and to actually put yourself in a context in which you can actually practice the language that you are learning, you know. So that's what I did before with other teachers, not the ones who were part of my study. And yeah, I think I don't know if you can see the results right away, but you can see that when you are in a safe environment and when you are in a context where all of you are making funny faces or all of you are I don't know, saying different things or giving ideas without anyone criticizing your idea, I think they can see in their own experience that can be possible for their students.
Thank you very much. That's grand, because I think drama is a really useful tool to explain, you know, a foreign language, especially because we're all too used to grammar lectures, which are so boring. So one last question for you, Yohimar, if you don't mind. And I know you were working with teachers as well, but your research interest is really is amazing, to be honest. Have you considered analyzing in the future students' feelings as a result of this differentiation, of the differentiation they might experience in class?
The things that I share with you, the teacher's part today, but my main focus, as I said, I think at the beginning, is with students. Because 70% of the students in this new setting that I have after COVID, well, mid-COVID, because we're still going on, the pandemic still going on. Our students are Spanish speakers, so I'm going to use my bilingual skills to get access to that, because usually the literature said that most of the time English language learners are not seen in research, because the researchers usually do not speak a second language. So my main focus are going to be on what the students have to say about those issues that teacher says about having them in the classroom, or in the case before, I have an article going on before the pandemic hit and we couldn't do more research in the bilingual mentoring program. The students have also language ideologies similar to the teachers in terms of telling their English language learners peers, you need to speak English, you need to speak English, you need to speak English, instead of using both languages in the mentoring program. They were using it, but their ideologies were different than the ones they were actually enacting. So hopefully that article is going to be published soon. But that's the student piece that I have there. And now in my new setting that I'm just started, I'm going to work with students too, if allowed.
And do you think working online or having to work online will condition their answer to your questions? And
totally, because I have attended to PD in the new setting in the community college, and it's not the same to have such a short amount of time to be there, so people you cannot walk and talk to people, get to know, because in an ethnography you need to spend a lot of time in the setting, getting to know people. And for me as a researcher, particularly, like me personally, that's important to me. Building relationships, building rapport, getting to know them, get them to know me and know that whatever they are telling me is confidential, and know me as a person, and that I can get to know them as people too. Because if I'm preaching that I'm going to use a cultural wealth or a cultural capital theory, that's the most important that I need to know, is like building relationship with people.
Yeah, sorry. You know, I was listening to Nicole's answer and Joy's answer, and that somehow reminded me as well of things that have been emerging in my research about remote teaching. But it has been emerging in my research as well, doing remote research, which is the aspect of the connection, you know, like connecting with the other person. Because even though obviously we are here, we can see each other, but we are not in the same physical space. So there are aspects that the body language or the facial expressions that obviously you can see the facial expressions, and you can see that I'm moving my hands, but in on-site communication, it's something that it's important and it's immersed for you to understand and transmit a message. So that is somehow as well, I think, and maybe Nicole and Joy could relate to that when we start collecting data, is the aspect of connecting with the participants.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main challenges we are facing when having to, you know, conduct everything online, that we lose that personal contact with the students and things become more complicated. But thank you very much all for your answers. And Sagun, if you have any questions for them, please go ahead.
You are on mute.
Sagun, we cannot hear you.
We can hear you, Sagun.
You're muted.
You are on mute.
Oh, there you
now.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, no doubt, but since we have, like, you know, we are a little bit ahead of our time for, you know, for the, what do you call, floor discussion. So what we would do is we'll be requesting our participants as well to post the questions in the chat box. And yeah, in the meantime, I can forward some questions to our panelists, but I would encourage our panelists to take questions from chat box more.
Okay.
First of all, I'm a little bit interested in when Mary mentioned affordances of, or let's say affordances of virtual communication tool as element in your research. Since my area is also on affordances, could you, elaborate a little bit how exactly you are looking into this?
Yeah, for example, that is going to vary from application or from tool to tool. So the teachers, well, in my case, I have done, let's say, I have collected data in 2 stages. I'm in the second stage. So in that case, the teachers or my participants, they have been using different tools. One of them, I could say, was Facebook Live, and another one is Microsoft Teams. So you may think, oh, Facebook Live, like that's not very common, like a very common tool you hear from teachers saying, oh, I'm going to teach through that tool. But once again, in this case, it depends on the context. So the teachers, they selected the tool according to the needs of the students and the country that they were teaching, which has like many, let's say, challenging circumstances. So that's why they selected Facebook Live. And in that case, we were discussing the things that they could do with this new tool that they couldn't do with the previous one. So that's what I mean by affordances, like the aspects that the teachers consider that the tool has to help them, communicate and actually fulfill the purpose of teaching.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, thanks. I can see a couple of questions to Nicole, Mary as well. First of all, shall we begin from Govinda Puri's question to Nicole? He got disconnected and he's more interested in methodology part. So could you explain a little bit action research design that you are going to have in your research?
Yeah. Basically, it's an action research that involves 2 cycles of the methodology. So in my first cycle, I was going to include basically interviews with the teachers I was going to be working with, and of course the CPD course that includes the training in the drama techniques, and of course a mentoring program, because one of the things that I was focusing on that usually teachers attend seminars or webinars now or conferences where they have a one-off session on drama for learning, but then they go back to schools and they say, okay, that sounds wonderful, but I cannot do it here. So that's why I was focusing on this mentoring program as part of my course, so that I could actually help them throughout the process of implementing these techniques in the classrooms and in their particular context, because even though they were all going to be teachers from state schools, all state schools in Chile in particular have different resources, because they have different resources from the councils where they are, so that was basically my research design methodology with the action research, but with multiple case studies, because I was going to have different teachers at different schools. And what changed is that now in my post-COVID situation, my first cycle couldn't be done in the way it was planned, because I couldn't collect data for my first cycle. So I had to change that into a more also ethnographic account of my own processes of being a language teacher and training to become a drama teacher or drama and in language teaching, and also interviewing practitioners who teach drama for language learning online. So it helped me design the online course that I will be implementing in my second cycle. So because of the pandemic, my methodology became a little bit eclectic. So it has lots of different methodologies, but yeah, I think it's reasonable so that I can actually conduct the research in a way within these conditions.
Thank you, Nicole. Govinda Puri, if you have any questions, then you can forward again. Yes, he has said thank you very much, Nicole. Okay, the question to everyone now from Krishna Deva. In the field of research and teaching on IRAAL, Are there any new techniques, apps, methods currently developed and in use as alternative ways of teaching? It's particularly the question from teacher, educator, or teacher, let's say. Any suggestion for, as you have, gone through different literature, let's say. Anyone can, kick it off.
Okay. Well, about research, for example, in my case, that's why you could see when I was presenting the research design that there is an aspect of autoethnography. And it was mainly because, of course, I'm working with teachers, but I am also a teacher, so I am part of the data. And my experiences, because I'm also teaching at the moment, that is considered part, I'm data as well. So my experiences are going to be included in my thesis. So that's why, that is one of, and I think it's very common to find that most researchers, they are adding the aspect of autoethnography because of all situation with the pandemic and because they needed to change the research design or the topic, or they needed to, get in touch with other participants in other contexts. Mm-hmm. So that would be one.
Thanks, Mary. Johi and Nicole, or even Raquel can, if you have come across any, Raquel. Currently developed and in use as alternative ways of teaching. So new techniques, it can be new apps, new methods.
Mm-hmm. Well, in my particular area of expertise, there isn't much information or there isn't much research in teaching drama online. So lots of drama teachers or teachers who teach language through drama have had to adapt to these conditions. And then it's a new niche, because nobody has done it before, because the assets of drama are because of you get together in a group, you touch people, you move around, you create things as a group, you work as an ensemble. It's a collaborative work. But if you are all sitting in different places in the world, in different contexts, it's difficult. So I think that's going to be something that it's going to develop from this pandemic. Yeah.
Johi, do you want to add some?
Can you remind me what was your initial question?
The question from Pisnadeva, probably from the standpoint of teacher or teacher educator, he's asking this question. Like, are there any new techniques, apps, or methods currently developed and in use as alternative ways of teaching?
Well, that's an interesting question because in my setting, I'm not going to be teaching, but in the PDs that I have been with these instructors that are going to be my possible participants later, they need help with online teaching, and they need help with strategies that they can use not only for online teaching, but for the adaptation of materials when they have, those are regular classrooms, but they have English language learners in the classrooms. So I think part of what I'm gonna be doing is also, again, if it is allowed, so far has been to find those tools for teachers and for instructors to help them, as I am the one that I have the ESL background. In my position as a researcher, I can also do that. But in terms of new techniques, last week in our PD, or like 2 weeks ago in our PD, we use, and I'm gonna type it here, play me. I'm gonna type it here. Some of the new technique, not techniques, but places teachers were asking for icebreakers in an online setting. They thought that was important. And I'm thinking all of the work that teachers are doing right now in terms of trying to adapt from the on-site to the online, and how they are kind of trying to resemble the same space. So we were talking about like how we would break the ice in an online setting when we first are meeting the students. So that was one of the things that we were talking in that session. And I provided a link for, I feel that if I remember correctly, and I'm gonna type it here, website that has a ton of strategies to do that. And for group work also, that's another issue that teachers are having when teaching online.
Thank you, Johi. So Krishnaji, from my side, like, you know, I would say your question when you talked about new techniques, apps, and methods currently developed and in use as alternative ways of teaching, since I'm looking into use of technology in crisis setting right now. So talking about apps, most probably Edmodo, which is social learning platform, might be useful. Again, I'm talking from not from a researcher standpoint, but as a language teacher. So then, like, you know, if you like, for example, when I had informal communication with some colleagues in Nepal, like what I also got is giving some kind of incentive to students at this point. I mean, sorry, I use the word incentive. I mean, for example, giving some kind of monetary support for students at this time to buy the data package and so on can, you know, support quite a lot to have online classes more smooth. For example, if the institution provides some kind of monetary support, very small monetary support for the students, let's say in public colleges or in public schools to join some online classes, most probably that strategy can be effective as well to bring everyone in. I'm talking from the developing country setting, by the way. So yeah, could be. I mean, it's strategy, holistic strategy from the institution. So Nicole, sorry, not Nicole, Raquel, do you have any?
Well, you know, my field is way more boring than yours because I'm working with cognitive linguistics and I'm teaching Spanish grammar through cognitive linguistics. So I think there aren't any specific app for that or any specific platform, but basically what we're doing is using images to teach, you know, grammar, because we think that grammar can be way more visual than it is explained. No, that list of uses, those eternal list of uses. But I think we are currently using apps like Genially. I'll write the name here.
Genially.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with this.
Oh.
Genially, I think we are also working. I'll give you the apps. This is just, as Sagun said, from a teacher standpoint. What was the name? Oh God, I don't remember. This one is for creating a podcast. But the thing is that you can do a podcast, an online podcast, so you can chat with your students while you're recording that. So it's really funny. And this is called a Spreaker in case it is of help. And Kahoot as well, yeah. So there are a lot of options to, you know, to work with grammar. So I think that's pretty much everything. And I think we had last question for
from Harry Singh to Mary.
That's it. Yeah.
Could you talk some more on the best practices of remote teaching in remote?
Okay. Well, I'm going to, because I wanted to say something about the previous question, and then I'm going to address this one because they are linked. And it's about the use of video. The use of live video, which is through video conferencing, and the use of recordings. That one, it's being used in education, but it's not that it's something new. The thing is that there are more people using online tools now that, like the aspect of video is something that is emerging again. And I could say the use of short videos, because we are realizing that not the attention span, but to keep the attention of the learners, we have to consider the length of the video and even the length of conferences. because imagine just, for example, in the case of children, having to sit almost throughout the day to do activities or to listen to the teacher talking. That is one of the things, like considering the length of the videos, but also how to make it more attractive for the learner. And one of the things that I have seen is like storytelling and the teacher as a resource. Because most of the time when we're doing video conferencing, we're sitting like this and we can only see this part, but I could easily stand up, move backwards, and you can see like if we were in the classroom. So it's the teacher as a resource and the use of their bodies, their movements, their gaze, and how they take advantage of that square that we have in the video conference to, you know, to use resources like Realia or the eyes and so on.
I think another thing that is that needs to be taken into consideration when teaching online is the regulations that you will have in your schools or settings. I don't know about other contexts, but in the US, there are a ton of regulations for everything. And no, they use to not force students to use videos. The people, or what are the settings where they're gonna be, are the applications or strategies or tools that you're gonna use free, or the state have to pay for them, or you need to use these tools that are provided by your institutions because we already pay for those licenses. So I think it is also, if the setting in an international setting, I know the tools have to be free. And that's something that, you know, a lot of time we don't have access to.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, I think now we have almost no time, but I think let's say I have a question which I think like I need to ask. So I'm asking to Nicole quickly, and so could you try to answer as briefly as possible? By the way, when you mentioned that our teacher needs to have a mastery of art and at the same time mastery of content when one tries to use drama technique in the classroom, I'm really interested. As per your reading, let's say, what do literatures, what do your studies say? What kind of strategies can be adopted in CPD courses? Like if the teachers have, let's say, skills in one of these two aspects, either, less skill in art or less skill in, let's say, content, by the way.
Thank you for your question. As I'm working with language teachers, I know they already have the mastery of the language techniques, teaching techniques, So that's why I'm focusing on the CPD course and how I can actually help them develop these. Of course, mastery is a very pompous word, but it's to have the ability to use these techniques for their own purposes, to adapt these techniques, these drama techniques, these rehearsal room exercises, to put them in pro of developing language learning. So that's why I was going to conduct 2 cycles so that I can check if in the first cycle I was able, these workshops were going to be held online, on the site. So I was wanting to see, I really wanted to see if teachers were able to develop that and be able to put them into practice in their own context. So yeah, I think that's something that I need to check if it's possible to be done. And I don't know if that's going to be possible to be done online. I still have to collect the data and see. But I think that teachers do not know that some of the exercises or some of the activities that they are using are part of drama. Like using tongue twisters, like to practice pronunciation, or using songs. So some of the things they are already using in their context are part of what is considered drama. So yeah, I think I will have to wait and see when I get the data actually. Okay. But I'm positive.
Yes. Thanks, Nicole. So thanks everyone, Mary, Nicole, Johi, for your time in this event. Without you, definitely it couldn't have been possible, and our valuable participants as well, who let's say who listened to us, and then who also questioned our panelists with their own curiosity and interest here. Thanks to our own, thanks to our participants as well. Raquel and I, yeah, we are always there later as well to, send you the link if you are interested in joining more events, which will be organized by IRAAL PGC. I need to mention this today in the room. We also have our blog editor S, who is from Bangladesh, but who is right now in DCU. So we are, yes, S is there. Hi, S. She's one of the blog editors. We do have the blog, IRAAL PGC blog. We'll be circulating this through the emails. So if you are interested, then yes, you also can suggest us few things so that we can organize later as well. That's from my side. So Raquel, if you have anything, then yeah,
no,
please.
I think it's pretty much everything. Thank you all for being here today with us. So thank you to our speakers for sharing their research with us, which it's amazing, to be honest. Thank you all for being there. And no, I think that should be all, Sagun, I think.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time.
Thank you. And one more thing, if you have participants, if you have any question as well, because of the, short presentation, our presenters, could not, I think because it's the pressure of time, so they mightn't have, dealt with the things which they could have dealt in more elaborate ways. So if you have any question, then you can, you can send those questions to us so that we can forward those questions to our, panelists, and they can come back to you anytime. So it's more like community of practitioners, if I get the term from Leben Wenger. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
Bye.
Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
Bye now.
Thanks, my Nepalese
Namaste.
friend.